Three Amigos, maybe? Cry About His Saddlebags? Yeah. Welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Mark is laughing at me because I said I have too many babies in my life right now.
That's not why I'm laughing.
And it's difficult. It's difficult to have to tell people, like, there can be too much baby.
That's not what you said either.
You don't think so?
That's not what you said.
There can be too much baby. It's hard to tell people that you don't care about their baby. It's difficult.
Said. That is.
I care about.
Oh, here, look! I don't care.
I care about them, and I care about the future of their baby. But right now, in the moment, I'm not like 6 months and under. I'm out. Like their heads don't stay up. Like it's fragile.
I remember when I had my first kid. Talking to a guy who was older than me who had two kids of his own.
Okay.
And he said, and this is like a guy's guy who, straight shooter. He goes, listen, he goes, until the kid, he goes, there's that point when they're born for like a week when it's really cool. He goes, but until the kid can like crawl and walk, he said, women think it's great. He goes, I'm telling you, it's hell.
Yeah.
And I don't know if hell is the right word, but I can remember like feeding the kid sometime, in the middle of the night or whatever time. And you just like, that the kid's eyes don't really, their eyes are learning to focus. Because when they're first born, they can only see like so far. And then,
sure.
And you're sitting there and all the kid does is poop and eat and cry.
Correct.
And you're thinking like, I'm putting in all this effort. When you look at me, at least look like you recognize me. That's all I'm asking. Just a little like visual appreciation. I know you can't say, hey, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
But just like you look at me like you look at the wall. Like, oh, it's just this thing.
In my life, I've always been capped to like 2 babies at a time. Like in my friends or cousins or family, like wherever the environment I'm in. Right now, there's more than I can count.
I will say this from the parental side, and anyone who's ever gone through this will agree. There is an ease to being able to set your kid on the floor in one room, go to the other room, find what you need, and come back and know your kid hasn't moved.
It's still right there.
But it's a lot more fun when the kid can crawl and walk. It's a lot more work. It's more nerve-wracking, but it is more fun.
It's just a lot of babies. That's all. Just saying it's a lot.
And you don't care.
Once like that 8-10 month range, I'm all in. I'm fully invested. I want to hang out. I want to be a part of their life. But that first like 6 months,
when they're, I'll never forget when he told me that, and it was like a relief because I'm like, my kid's like 4 months old, and this sucks.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, it's hell until they can move, and then it becomes fun.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm not being biased. Like I did the same. Like my niece is the same way. Like it's not just because they're somebody else's kid. Like my niece is the first 6 months. I was like, I'm good. Like And
when he said it, and I agree. There's a guys and women look at it differently.
Mm-hmm.
Guys want to. Like,
you don't think there's any guys that like it?
I'm sure there are.
6 months.
I'm sure there are. Just like I've said this about.
I'm sure there's women that hate the first 6 months.
I'm sure there are too.
There you go.
I had a guy say this. The brother of a really good friend of mine told me he was older and he had kids first, and he talked about spit up and poop and stuff like that. Things that you in general in life you find disgusting. Mm-hmm. When it's your kid, it doesn't even bother you. And I remember him telling me this. I think I might have been in high school or college. I was still kind of young.
What happened for you?
When he told me that, and I was like, what are you talking about? But then when it's your kid, it doesn't faze you. But I will say
We'll see.
I have changed, like changing my own kids' diapers. I was like a pit crew. I was good. I one time had to change another kid's poopy diaper, and it was weird.
Yeah.
And so women have that motherly, nurturing, they are. I mean, you can just tell. With my own kids, I was great. With other kids, and women are just so much better at it than that.
I don't think I'm biased. In general, I don't think I'm biased at all. I think it's all babies. Even if I have one of my own, it might be included.
You're at that age.
I think I'm unbiased towards babies.
You got through the lot of wedding age. Now you're into the lot of babies.
The most unbiased part of me in any aspect of life may be babies. I am completely unbiased to babies. All of them under 6 months. I'm sorry. I want nothing to do with you.
I would just, and there's a guy who has 3 kids of his own, and I just at summer league, one of my players has a nephew, and every time a new kid, it's just shocking because they grow so fast, and even at 6 months and whatever, they double in size, but newborns are so freaking little. And every time I'm around, and this kid now is not even really newborn. This kid might be 4 months old, but they are so tiny when they can't even hold their head up. That's the reminder of. And every time I see someone else with them now, I'm like, thank God it's not me again.
Michael Jordan sold the Hornets. Deion Sanders is in the news again. There's some Trump stuff. He yelled food for everybody and then left the restaurant after he said that.
We should try that. It's a good trick. You can make friends for a minute
and then head out.
So here, I got a philosophical question for you because this is Philosophical Friday. What else are we going to do? We were joking about something else before, but this is a joke, but this is serious. I read it on NorthcentralPa.com, and I'm going to have some of the details wrong. I want to say it was either Mill Hall or Center Hall. I think it was Center Hall. 2 guys got in a fight out in a parking lot, I think, because the one guy accused the other guy of putting some sort of tracking device, spyware, on the dude's phone. So he pushed him down, he hit him a few times, and he left. And they're witnesses. They're like, this is the car he drove. This is who he is. This drove what? Like an hour and a half, they saw him standing in the parking lot by his car having a conversation. He's taken into custody and charged with whatever. So my immediate comment to you was, if the guy did put spyware on the other dude's phone, he should get hit in the face. And we had the debate back and forth. What is acceptable? Is there any point? I understand the law, and the law is the law. Is there any point where it's socially acceptable? What aspects are to punch someone? What can they do?
I think there's 2 lines. The first one is that, like, is there at any point, is there a line where it's acceptable before it's against the law? That's the question. And then the second question is, what is your individual line that you would like? I was trying to think what would have to happen for me to get in a fight, and it's pretty significant. But you've also said before, I'm way too laid back. Like
I don't disagree with that.
What would it take for you to have to, like, what would it take for you to get in a fight?
I mean, I would think
it can't be to besmirch you,
because
it would have to. We get besmirched every day, so it can't be. My guess is it's not something verbal.
I would think it would have to be a self-defense aspect, but there's still the level. So say they go through and he proves that the other dude put spyware on his phone.
Okay.
Does the judge then look at it and say, well, then you deserve to get punched in the face?
I bet you some judges across the country would probably try to dismiss like the civil aspect of it.
There's just a social, if you're walking down the street and you tell a guy, your wife is ugly, and he punches you in the face, is that a crime or did you deserve it?
I guess it just, I just would never take any of it seriously. I guess that's my problem. Like, my problem is I would never be insulted enough by what someone has said that it would make me walk up but I'm also, like, you've keyed in on this. I am a little oblivious to some of that stuff. I am a little kind of like laid back on it. I love my girlfriend dearly. And if someone said something about her, we would probably get in the car that night and be laughing about, like, can you believe so-and-so? What an idiot. Da, 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 da.
No, I get it.
I don't think it would ever turn to like actual physical.
But as a kid, and we were raised in a different generation of the world now. But when we were kids, our parents looked at it and said, hey, be careful what you say, or you might come home with your teeth in your hands.
Sure.
And that was like, it wasn't like, oh, you say whatever you want. If he punches you, we'll call a lawyer.
Right.
It was just why.
So not to like completely change the subject, but like I remember all the way up through my teens, even in college at times, like I was afraid of certain adults. Like there were certain adults that you just didn't say certain things to because you knew. And I don't think kids feel that way anymore. Like I don't think kids are afraid of any physical result of their actions.
I would mostly agree with that. I think for the most part that's probably good, because I don't really think physical violence is I think it's very rarely the answer. But there is a little bit of
if there's no
You can
repercussion, if there's no repercussion for the things you verbally say or physically do from the age of 8 to 18, I mean, imagine the things. I mean, teenagers suck. Like, imagine the things you would do if you knew that there was no result or punishment.
That it is. I mean, we grew up in a time that was, you were a little bit afraid.
And by the way, I was an idiot. Like, the point that I'm trying to make,
you say that in a past tense.
The point that I'm trying to make is, I do feel like, had I not felt that way, I may have said things or done things that would have.
No, I'm with you.
A big deterrent of that was the fact that I was afraid that if I did. Now, I also said this to you too. If someone, going back to the story you brought up, if someone put spyware on my phone at age 36, I don't think I care. Like, I think I would be like, good luck. Like, what did you find? There was a time in my life, though, from like 22 to 25.
You were throwing punches.
I mean, it would have been like, it certainly would have been a WTF moment of like, what, like, are you kidding me? And like being a little afraid of what they might have found on my phone.
No, I understand. It is.
Do you find your phone to be private? I mean, that's another thing to this story too. I think for some people, like, I am way more private about my phone than I think a normal, like, my girlfriend, the phone is almost like it's
like the remote.
It's just
there.
It's a it's not communal.
I know
like, it's like a communal thing, and it sits on the table and it sits on thing, and like you can pick it up and check the time and look at the weather, whether it's your phone or it's not your phone. And I'm not that way, in the sense of like, not only do I never look at my girl, like I never look at my girlfriend's phone. I will, if her phone is in front of us and my phone's over there and I want to know what time it is, I will get up and walk over and see what time it is on my phone.
I think this would be a fascinating conversation to have with a large group of people, because I feel like the phone is very personal. Like, if I'm somewhere and my kids are around, like if we're this close, if you were over there, whatever, and the phone buzzed, I would just be like, hey, your phone just went off, and I wouldn't even look at it.
Right.
And I would just hand it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm dad. Like, I could be like, oh, who's texting you now? But I don't.
But I think we're in the minority.
You do?
I think we're in the minority that, not that people think it's personal. I think we're in the minority that we treat other people's phones the way we would want to treat our phones. I think like, if you and I were sitting here and the phone lit up, most people would look at it when it lit up to see what it said, even though it's not their phone. I think that's the majority of people. I think the majority of people, if you leave your phone face up and it lights up and you and I are sitting next to each other, the majority of people look down at it. They look down, they see what it says, regardless of if it's their phone or not.
See, and this is what's funny. I always put my phone face down, but I do it because I feel like I'm protecting it and the screen can't get broken.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I get what you're saying.
But I also understand that the camera's on the back and that you could do damage to the back too. But I've just, because, the screen protector, and mine's a little cracked. Yeah. But it's still, this
is what I have found. Even if you, especially relationship-wise, even if you're not doing anything wrong in your relationship, nothing good comes from looking at the other person's phone. Ever. Because you don't know what they said to you. Like, even something as simple as what they were mad at you one day and what they said about you to their mother. And it's there and it's in the phone, and it's like, so for me, it's one of those.
Has your girlfriend ever been mad at you?
Yeah, a couple of times. So for me, it's like, I don't want into that bubble. Like, if you are having private conversations about good things, bad things about me, like however you feel about me in that moment, to your best friend, your parents, your sisters, whoever it may be, I'm not like, I don't want in that world. I don't want in that bubble.
I agree with that. There is an ignorance is bliss.
Because I think most people look at it from just the straight cheating. Like, just, are you cheating or are you not cheating? And for me, it's more than that. It's just the idea of like, I don't want to be in a space where you thought it was safe to say the things you needed to say about me. Like
I agree.
I don't want to be
Oh,
involved
when you hear something that someone said about you that you're surprised at and it was negative,
it's hard.
it is hard. It is really hard, and it is better to be.
But don't people need those spaces?
Yes.
And isn't that what the phone is in a way? In a weird way?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, no one. I'm trying to think how many people in the world do you not say anything negative about, or just vent, or just frustration. And when you're around, what's it? Familiarity breeds contempt, and there are just things that people just, yeah, you just need to vent it.
Do you like? I assume that my friends at some point are venting about me to other friends or to their significant other. Do you not make the same assumption?
I don't think about it.
See, so my thing is, I think about it, but I don't seek it. So I try to,
Correct.
to keep it tucked away, but at the same time, like, I mean, you can't be completely ignorant to it. Like, you have to understand. Here's why. You know why? Because there's no chance you aren't doing the same thing at some point.
Well, that's the thing, too.
Right? So you're supposed to do it, but everybody else in your family and friend group is just not saying anything negative about you on their phone.
Now, I don't even care about if they're saying negative things about you on their phone. I want to know if they're allowed to punch you in the face.
If they found out what I said on the phone?
I was trying to bring it full circle.
What if I have a private conversation with somebody and I bring up that you are a D-bag and
they would know you're lying,
and they screenshot it and send it to you? Should you be allowed to then like hold that against me? Like, should you be allowed to hold?
Well, and yes, you should be allowed to hold it against you,
Really?
but that's why it's so.
Even though it was in like a private.
There are. I think one of the.
I think this is what
yeah, because you still said it and you meant it, but it's. And I don't say hold it against you. It would hurt because like you're like, oh, that's what he thinks about me when I'm not around. Although that's what you think about me when I am around, so that probably wouldn't hurt that much. But there is the part of it that's important is like the middle person to not be like, hey, send a screenshot, because that doesn't do any good.
I think that's the second most important. I think the first most important is you have to be willing to say anything that you would text. Like, I try not to text anything that I wouldn't say to their face. Like if I was talking crap about you, I would be like, sometimes Mark goes on these rants and that's not something I wouldn't say to your face.
Isn't true.
Right. But I would say that to your face.
Yeah, that is what's weird, because when I insult people, I do it as a joke. I don't really insult people. Like, not all, like, especially your friends and the people that in your circles, because you that's one of the other things too, is you get to the point of like, who people are and they have these things that bother you, that not bother you, but annoy you, or you would do it differently, or they have these quirks. And there's this, you're like an idiot if you keep complaining about it. You're like, that's how they are. That's how they are.
Sure.
When they, when they order, like, I'll give you an example. This is a bad example, but a good example. Whenever we used to go out to eat, no matter if there were 2 of us or there were 20 of us, my ex had to order last because she just felt she was one of these. Like, when I go and I get a menu,
I know the type.
I'm just looking for one.
I know the type.
I'm looking for something I like and I'll get it.
Yes.
She's going to read the whole menu and analyze, and so she wanted as much time as she could have. I thought it was stupid, because you're just looking for something that you can,
Did that bother you? Because that might be a whole other conversation. Why did that bother you?
Because when it was just the 2 of us, it didn't matter.
Well, yeah.
But when you're in a crowd and you're like, I need to be last.
Okay.
I was like, you don't need to be last. Just pick something.
And it bothered you? This like irked you?
No, not. But it's just an example of something I didn't understand.
Yeah. Well, but see,
if I really let it bother me, then I'm an idiot, because I knew she was going to do it. And then at the point you just laughed it off, and you're just like, yep.
But I would argue that's still something you would say to her face.
Oh, and make fun of her. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So that's not even that bad. Like, I don't know. I think the phone is personal. I do think there's moments in your life where you would be more upset than not. 22-year-old me would have freaked out if somebody would have put spyware on my phone.
Oh, I think I
36-year-old me.
When you're talking about spyware, like, are they Are they tracking you? Are they? And it depends why. If it was a buddy who was trying to be funny or something, my first thought, and I could be wrong, my first thought was that it probably had to do with some girl, and it was some tracking where, like, his physical location. You thought about it as websites and what he was. So that certainly depends.
I mean, I would understand from just like credit cards, passwords, that aspect I get. The tracking thing, I'm not trying to like dismiss the tracking thing. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if someone puts it's a friend, right? Like this story,
I would
it was
assume,
a friend.
like,
well, what was the story?
Well, I didn't read it, but like, who would have your phone? How would he'd have to be close enough that he had access to your phone? Wouldn't you think?
I don't know. It depends how they put it on.
That's true too.
That's true too. I mean, the fascinating part is that he was able to find out. I mean, did the person confront him and say, "Hey, I did this thing," or?
That's why I want to know if the judge is like, "Nope, he did it. You deserve to get punched in the face." I would. What? $10 fine. Give him something.
Have you ever seen somebody get punched in the face in person and said to yourself, like, they deserve that? I have. I have been somewhere, seen an altercation, and said that person definitely deserved that.
I'm trying to think.
You don't think you've ever been in that position?
I'm trying to think. Not that I can't think of any off the top of my. I'm trying to think. Last time I saw somebody.
I told you I've been hit twice in real life, and I have always to this day said one time I didn't deserve it, and one time I definitely deserved it. And I've always
the time you deserved it was your sister. And what did you do?
To my sister?
No, she punched you.
My sister never punched me.
She wanted to punch you
multiple times. I have no doubt. So it's an interesting thing. I guess what I'm saying to you is, to answer your question, knowing that 50% of the time that I got hit, I'm sitting here and telling you I deserved it. I guess in my head, yes, there is a line where I would say, like, yeah, you probably can hit somebody, and I wouldn't condemn it.
I mean,
like,
when you think, and I read it, and I was rattling off these things in my head, like, if you're, I made the example, if someone says something about your wife, if you're, walking your dog and somebody kicks your dog for no reason, like, can you punch the guy? I think a good percentage of reasonable law-abiding society would say, yeah.
What's unique about that one, though, is, like, even though it wasn't immediate altercation, it was a physical doing. It was a physical.
But it wasn't to you.
I get it, but it was still physical.
Okay, that's
kicking
fair.
The dog is like you were physically.
You didn't
engaging.
Respond to verbal with physical. You responded to physical. Yeah, but there are some. I would be fascinated to see how this case turns out. If the guy was right, and he did, it's like if some guy comes up and not even slide. Some guy comes up and lets the air out of your tire.
Okay.
And then, like, you see him do it, and you run out. Are you allowed to punch him?
It's interesting. I don't know the law.
Oh, the law is going to tell you can't.
But
does society think you're allowed to punch him?
I would argue in 1997, the answer was yes.
I think there's a lot of people who think in 2023, like,
in 2023, what are you doing? Yeah. I don't know, though, because now, like, there are more than ever before, like, there are ramifications for reacting to somebody's acting.
No, I get it.
Even if the acting is deplorable, like, you are still, it's weird. Like, you are almost upheld equally for your reaction than you are for the initial action. It's
but I think there's a lot of these examples where the phone is interesting because the phone is, even though it's been around for decades. But if it's something about your wife, your kids, your dog, your property, I think there are times in the majority people would react and be like, yeah, the guy deserved it. If he'd done that to my kid or my wife or my car or my dog, I'd have punched him too. And I think this comes from level-headed people who haven't punched anyone in 40 years.
Yeah.
It is. It's an interesting.
I always try to find the line with something, and I have a hard time. I'm not sure where the line is. I think there's so many dependents, peer-to-peer. What was the action that caused the reaction? Like, I think there's a lot of factors. To try to draw just a black line, like a straight line on it, I think the line's very gray, and I think it moves. I don't.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you. If it's a friend, how good of a friend? What was the intent? Because so often at times with friends, one friend thinks he's being funny and the other friend doesn't think it's funny at all.
I've said to you before, some of the stuff with this, I've said, I think people get way too upset now at what people say. Like, I think there is like an on edge and a sensitivity to what people will verbally say to you that didn't exist 20, 30 years ago. And so now I think people, instead of laying back, laughing it off, throwing a verbal jab back, making it into a joke, whatever it may be, like, people don't do that anymore. They just get offended very quickly.
I would agree with that. Do you think that just though the tenor of things right now has so much more venom in it than it did 20 years ago?
I think it's sensitivity personally. I mean, personally, that's what I think it is. I don't know if it's necessarily like tension or venom as much as it just kind of is like people, maybe it's like a social media thing because everything now, people just express their emotions and their feelings all the time. But people are way more offended by a thought or an opinion where, like, I don't know, like the people that I was around when I was a kid in the 90s and early 2000s, no one got offended. Now they disagreed, right, and they would throw jabs back at you. But this like outrage of sensitivity and being like completely offended by something, like that is the thing that I have a hard time.
I think too, to take it one step further, to the people who are like, that offends me, so it should be done with. And society has run rampant with that.
Yeah.
What was it? The terms that Stanford, I think Stanford released it. Well, like places, how many colleges don't have freshmen anymore? They have first year.
Yeah.
Because the term men is in it. And that obviously throws everything off because for 100 years, we had freshmen in high school, we had freshmen in college, and nobody was bothered. Now they're bothered.
For me, like I guess what I would say to you is, I think if you're hitting somebody over verbal, I don't understand. Like, I just don't.
I agree with that.
Like that part, I really don't understand it because unless they like verbally accosting you in a situation where they're stopping you from leaving, they're stuck there, or they're maybe in your home or on your property, like that's different. But if you're just out and about, like if you're at a bar and you swing at somebody over a verbal thing, like that part, I'm like, I don't know. I've just never been to that point. Every time I've ever had any instance like that, it has always been physical to physical. It was something physical happened, and then there was a physical reaction.
I agree.
The phone spyware thing.
The phone spyware is interesting.
See, to me, that's more. I can't say it's verbal, intellectual, I guess. It's so invasive, is what it is. It is.
And that is...
I just don't know if I would hit somebody. I would, like, depending on what happened, certainly you could sue them. There's a lot of things you could do depending on the severity of it. Right. I mean, if they're getting your credit card information, if they're stalking you because they have your like those types of things, I don't know if physical altercation would have been like my first.
No, but I can see this with college kids. Like someone I have your phone. And you're like, give me my phone. And you're like, yeah, give me my phone. Right. Well, how many give me my phones do you get before you're eating a knuckle sandwich? Like is that a phrase that's still around anymore?
It is. So it's so funny you say that. And we'll end the show with this. So we had with a group of friends, if someone takes their fist and rubs your head, what is that called?
A noogie.
Thank you. There is a faction of people in my generation and below that this is a knuckle sandwich. This is not a noogie.
Well, explain to those people that when you have a sandwich, it doesn't go on your head; it goes in your mouth, and that's why it's a knuckle.
Mm-hmm. I'm just telling you, like there are people in this world who don't know what a noogie is. Think of wrap your head around.
We have raised a soft generation, I'll tell you.
A soft generation.
It's our fault. It is all our fault.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news. We'll be back next week.
We will be. I thought I had. Happy Father's Day. I knew there was something I wanted to say.
There you go.
Happy Father's Day. This will be the first one. I tell you, this is nothing. So my son was born in August of 2006. So from 2007 through last year, this will be the first Father's Day that all my kids aren't around.
That's a bummer.
Because my oldest is she goes to school in Pitt. She was home for a little while and she's got a job out there. Okay. So It is, yeah, this is the first one. So if we're going to do a Father's Day picture,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to have to be the other two with her on FaceTime.
Got it.
So yeah, it's just, you know, one of these realities of getting older and like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Soon you'll have in-laws. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. We'll see you next week.
You know who's not happy about that?
Who?
Your girlfriend's parents.